Hey guys, it's the Techie Biochemist here, coming at you with another tutorial. Today we're going to be going over some basic VMD stuff involving visualizing a molecule. Before we get started though, I'm going to show you a fun little trick I learned today. So in Finder, we're going to open this up and I'm going to navigate to this, the Techie Biochemist level, so my user library. And, oh, actually, I need to open VMD first for this. I'm going to come over here and hit VMD processes, and I'm going to say write settings to vmdrc. What that's going to do is it is going to write a file in this folder. And you may be thinking, I don't see any file. What the frick are you talking about? Well, it's a hidden file that the computer talks to itself with, but it doesn't want you to see. It is a secret file. But because we do not allow our computers to have unwanted secrets from us, we're going to make it reveal the secret by hitting Shift, Command, holding those down, and then hitting the period or dash. And right here, now we can see this vmdrc document that is hidden. We're going to open that up, and this is basically a theme file. You do not want to change, like it says here, don't edit it by hand. You don't want to actually touch that. But what we can do is come down here, and after the end, basically this is a file that the VMD is basically going to run from the TK console anytime it opens up. So if you have any preferences, you can have it default to them through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say CD, because if you've worked with VMD a bit, you know that you constantly have to do the command directory thing and navigate to your working directory through TK console before you do anything, or your files end up heaven knows where. Side note, Windows users, this is slightly different for you guys. I'll cover that separately for y'all. But for Mac users, you want to hit CD. And the working directory it's always going to assume is your user directory where this vmdrc file is located. So that's where we're currently at. And so I'm going to tell it to navigate to Documents, Documents, VMD, and we'll just leave it there actually. No, I do not want to enable Siri. Okay. So yeah, that's basically what we're going to type in there, and then we're just going to exit it out and close. And just real quick to show, we opened up VMD before we made that file. So right now it still thinks that it is in my user folder of the Techie Biochemist, and that is in fact where it is right now. But now if I quit VMD and then reopen it, might have to do that real quick, but now it knows it's in VMD, and I don't have to go through the TK console to navigate to my working VMD directory every time I do something. Instead, all of my files are by default going to be dumped there, which is great. So that'll just save me a lot of time as I move down the road. All right, and without further ado, let's jump into the actual meat and potatoes of this video. So I'm going to open up a new molecule. I'm going to browse in PDB. I'm going to open up, okay, I'm back. So, I want this file actually that I just had to go dig up. And this PDB is a combination of 2 bovine thrombin subunits and a hirudin, which is an anticoagulant protein, all in complex together. So this molecule is going to be really cool to illustrate a couple different things I want to show you guys today. So I'm just going to minimize that so it stays out of our way and isn't a distraction, and make this a little bit bigger so we can see it nicely. Okay, just set that to spinning. All right, so step by step, let me walk you through what I'm doing. I'm going to hit graphics, then representations. This is a screen where I can tell VMD how I want stuff to be displayed. So there's, for starters, there's drawing method. There's a lot of different drawing methods, but there's only a few that are actually particularly useful and important for you to use on a somewhat regular basis. So I will go through those as soon as I get my protein to stay in a still position I like. The first one is going to be new cartoon. Cartoon is basically the same, it's just a little bit clunkier looking. New cartoon has these beautiful helices and beta sheets, so you really get kind of the classic protein drawing effect. And so yeah, this is a pretty cool looking one. Coloring method is also, actually, you know, I'll show you coloring method on a slightly different one. Yeah. But yeah, new cartoon is going to give you kind of your structural display. Next is going to be surf and let me see, what's the simpler one? Quick surf. Quick surf, oh boy. Quick surf is just a very loose, rough estimate of the surface of all of the atoms in your protein. These red dots are some waters, and the rest of it, like, it's showing this stuff based on, I think, electronegativity or something. I'm not sure. Sorry, Twister doesn't show anything. That was an accident. Ribbons is cool looking, but not the most useful, honestly. Same with new ribbons. It's very fancy looking. It's kind of like new cartoon without the structural stuff. Surface is a lot like quick surface, except it's much more detailed. That means it also is going to take a lot more of your computer's RAM to not only generate the initial surface, but then also to render any images you might want to make. But it is very, like, distinct in what's going on. Orbital, often not going to do anything. Beads is just kind of glomps. But VDW is actually going to be very interesting and useful, because this is just going to make a sphere out of everything in the molecule. So, and then finally, bonds and lines. Lines is usually going to be your default. It's very useful for certain structural things that we'll hit in a later video. But bonds and dynamic bonds are actually going to kind of give us the most realistic idea of the structure in terms of the protein. So up here you can see there's room for more stuff. So I'm going to show you, first off, this for bonds, we're going to put res name for coloring method. Basically, now each of the amino acid residues is colored differently based on its identity. I forget what each color means, so we're actually going to go to res type, which is like normal, polar, nonpolar. Okay, that also isn't particularly useful. Segment name. This is a little more interesting. And so basically in this, for this protein at least, each of the segments is a different subunit. This over here, that's shown up in gray, is, I believe, the small subunit of the thrombin. The structure in red is a hirudin, and the structure in blue is the alpha or large subunit of the thrombin. And that little orange thing is, I forget what it's called. It's called like NAG or something. It's I think glycosaccharide or something. I don't know. It's not really a part of the protein per se. It is attached to it, but it's kind of doing its own thing there. So it's in a segment of its own. Excuse me. So, yeah, I've got that colored by seg name. Now, an interesting thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in protein for selected atoms. And you can see that little orange segment disappeared because it wasn't actually a protein. So now we are left just with the portions of this PDB file that are actually protein. But that doesn't tell us everything that's in the PDB file, because we know there's at least one thing that's not, that's not part of it, right? So I'm going to say resid nag, I believe that's the name of it. Maybe it's res name. No? Okay. Then we're going to type in not protein. And sure enough, that side, oh, I was on the wrong side. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to res name. Yeah, okay, that shows up. And if I type in something different like nat, it doesn't show up. So yeah, that thing is specifically called nag. And with that, it shows up. Next, I'm going to say water. And initially, nothing changes or shows up, but that is partially because I have this set to dynamic bonds. Dynamic bonds is not going to show water molecules, but VDW will. So now suddenly we have all of these waters. Instead of coloring by seg name, I'm going to color by color ID. This lets me just choose whatever color I want, and I'm going to choose ice blue for all those water molecules. I think that illustrates them nicely. And I'm also going to make them edgy glass, so they're kind of transparent. Or, ooh, blown glass. Is this still visible? Only vaguely. Okay, we'll make them transparent. All right. That's nice. Okay, and then because I explored this molecule earlier, I know there is one other molecule that's not showing up here. So I'm going to create another one. I'm going to change the coloring to yellow. And I'm going to say ions. And there it is. You might not be able to see it. Let me make it opaque. That is a sodium ion, also embedded in this protein. Now, every protein that you work with is going to have different ions, different like ligands that aren't part of the protein, and different subunits and stuff. And sometimes you're not going to know which is which. But playing around with these representation settings can help you get a better idea of what you are and are not looking at. Just another quick tip here. If you double click any of these, it's going to make them disappear. Finally, I'm going to create another one of these, but I'm going to say not protein. So now, and I'm going to say name. So now everything that is not protein is going to show up. I can also say and not water. And so now all that shows up are the sodium and that NAG. And so by going through all of this, I'm able to establish that, yeah, these are essentially the only things in this protein that are not protein and not water. And I've accounted for them in different representations, so I'm going to bring all of those representations back. And there we go. Now I have a pretty good idea of what this protein overall looks like. Just to give you another idea of how to kind of figure out some of this stuff, if you go under selections, it'll give you a bunch of suggestions essentially for stuff you can type in. Index is going to be for like actual specific atoms or residues. That can definitely be very useful. Atomic number is, of course, going to be the atomic number of atoms. So if you want specific atoms to show up, you can type in atomic number and then put in a value. Same thing kind of for elements. Going to be pretty much exact same as atomic number. It's just going to use the abbreviations instead of the numbers. Residue is, again, just going to be the number that residue shows up on the other overall protein structure. Res name is going to be your three-letter abbreviations for residues, along with certain things like this NAG or like the sodium that are coded as residues for the purpose of PDBs, although they're not actually they're not actually residues as we usually talk about them in biochemistry, because usually by that term naturally we mean specifically amino acid residues of a protein. Chain and seg name are a couple other things we can use here. Again, I'm going to make everything else invisible just so that we can see exactly what we're talking about here. The way we would do this is by typing chain, so you can double click it or type it in. And I'm going to say H. So that is everything involved in chain H. There's like a lot of stuff there. I'm going to make it new cartoon just for clarity. And then I'll color by chain. If I make another one of these and say chain, what was it, I? And put that in, then, oh, there's our Haruden. So chain and segment are a lot of times going to be basically indistinguishable from each other. The only difference is that in this case, chain is specifically going to be portions of protein. Seg name can be other things like NAG is probably that D or E or something like that, and then the waters are likely down in those. So whichever way you go about that, those are really useful things to kind of divvy up the different parts and function of your protein. So I'm actually just going to delete those last two reps and make everything else visible again, except that last one. And finally, I'm just going to show you really quickly how to generate a rendered image from VMD. So I like these materials. I think though I want to make this unit of the thrombin a little bit more visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make that invisible. I'm also going to get rid of the water because that's not that important to me either in this case. And I'm going to say that I want to color by color ID. I'm going to say chain A. Or no, chain H. And I'm going to color it as red 2. Where the frick did the NAG go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, I get it. Okay. So in this case, it is included within that chain H. So instead, I'm going to use seg name A, and there we go. Now it's just showing what's in that segment, leaving our little NAG there intact. Next, I'm going to say seg name B, and this is probably going to be the Haruden, and since it's kind of like it's sort of our unique thing, I'm going to put that as green. And then finally, seg name C, yeah, that's going to be our little subunit. So for that, I'm going to make it red. No, I'll put it magenta. No, that's violet. Magenta. Okay. So that kind of shows each of our unique things. And then finally, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put them into surface. I think that will really help show off the exact purpose too. Yeah, so you can really see how they fit together there, and how Haruden is in complex, like, held by this thrombin molecule. Unfortunately, we can't really see the sodium here, but I think that's okay. I really like how this shows us the actual kind of bonding function of the alpha unit and the thrombin. And then if we take it from this angle, we can also kind of just see the beta unit in the background there. Finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this full screen, because that will let me kind of see stuff. And then over here, actually the one other thing I'm going to do is for seg name A, which is the big subunit, excuse me, I'm going to make it actually edgy glass. So now that's still not that transparent. Okay, I'm going to make it actually transparent then. So it's going to show up so we can actually see through it to what's behind it. And then with this, I'm going to make it edgy shiny. Can't see any difference now, but it'll show up really nicely. And for our little ligand there, I'm going to make it glossy. Okay. And you know what, for that final smaller subunit C, I'll make that brushed metal. Yeah, that'll look cool. Okay. And finally, I want this to be as full screen as we can get it. Where the frick did the oh, I accidentally made it invisible. Okay, now we can see that. Okay, so you want this full screen as you can get it, and then over here for display, I'm just going to take out my axes because I don't want to see them. And you can see now that's disappeared. And so now this is ready to render. So the way we're going to render is we're going to come over here, we're going to hit render. It's fine for it to render there, but I want it to render using Tachyon. And instead of file name, blah, 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 I'm going to say 7A0F pretty. And I'm going to hit start rendering, and it's going to generate a TGA image file. It's going to show up in here because this is what I set as my home directory at the beginning of this video. So we're just going to have to wait a minute for it to actually show up. But there it is. If we open this up, now we can see it has pretty cool look now that it's all rendered up. We can see the translucent stuff. We can just see the sodium in there. And we get a really good idea of kind of the actual structure of this protein and what it looks like functionally. The final thing I'm going to do here, just for visibility's sake, is actually I don't really like having this one be green, so I'm going to change it to cyan. That's our preview, not our final image. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like that color balance a little bit better. And then finally, I'm going to change the background to a gradient. It shows up like that. I don't really like those gradient colors. Choose. Display. Here we go. Background. Background top is black. Background bottom is that blue. Okay, I think I want top to be, you know what, we'll go with the green on this one. And for bottom, I'll go with more of a gold. No, I'll go with a very light green. No, let's go with gray instead. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So let's run the render again. So we'll come here, we'll hit render, start rendering. It's going to overwrite that file, so I won't even have the old one. You can change the name if you don't want to overwrite what you just rendered. But if not, you can just leave it and it'll replace the file. Actually can rename this one pretty one, and then it's just a new one will get created, but this one will be left intact. There we go. And yeah, here's our new finished product. Nope. Okay. Here we go. Here's our new finished product. I think that looks pretty cool. That is just kind of a quick lesson of navigating around and changing the appearance of stuff in VMD and then rendering your final image. Hope you enjoyed this video, and give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And let me know what else you would like to see covered in VMD and NAMD or any other of these molecular dynamics applications. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.